can you see this person's perspective,
Right.
but can you see beyond this barrier that is in front of you right now? And we do get to that place of gratitude and actually appreciation. Now, it takes us refusing to stay in a victim mindset in order to do that.
Woo! I tell you what, every week I see that and I go, yes.
Mhm.
And everybody wants to know how we plan all of our shows. We just open up the box that is us and go, what's bothering us right now? And I saw this because it might have been my fence, but
I was like, I don't think I recognize that fence.
might be my fence. Mending fences ain't always pretty, and we're going to talk about we're going to talk about healing and what that entails. And sometimes it is pretty, and don't have to apologize for that. Sometimes things work out really good, and so Teri, let's open up the can of worms. Let's start with you have been wronged, and someone wants to mend a fence with you.
Me personally?
Well, we can open it that way, or we can just go the big generalization
Let's
of
just
you.
do the generalization
Yeah.
because I have a different take on it than
Okay.
but I've been doing this a long time, right? So
Mhm.
I'm gonna have a different take on it. When we feel as though we have been wronged by somebody, first and foremost, if you're in a space to clarify, like sometimes you know when you've been wronged, right? Because it's just you know it. Other times it's a little passive, or perhaps someone has wronged you and they don't even know they've done it. So before you work yourself up into all the, well, I'm gonna try to see if you can have a conversation with the person. Now, if we're talking about a wrong that you know they wronged you, and maybe you've been sitting around expecting and even waiting for them to mend this fence, you've got to ask yourself, one, are you willing to allow that to happen? Because if you are, then move forward, in a healthy way. If you're not, you can't sit there and tell them everything they're doing wrong about how they're mending it, because perhaps they're coming at it the only way they know how. Because all of our life experiences, while similar in many ways, are all individually different because of our own implicit and explicit learnings and how we navigate life.
Okay, I'm going to ask a really a question that there's a difference between accepting amends and forgiveness, and it looks different in different scenarios. Do you always have to take someone's fence mending? Do you always have to accept that?
Absolutely not. No, you don't. I mean, if you want to, you can, but you don't have to. Now, some people will say, yes, you need to because they deserve that, and so do you. But when you're ready, you'll get there. You can't, I just said this, I think I sent this to you in a text earlier today, a discussion I was having with a client about healing being punitive. When someone's trying to mend a fence, there's two people that are hurt there. So just because one person's wanting to heal it doesn't mean the other person is in a place where they actually can. Not that they don't want to, but maybe it's still very raw for them and they can't right now. But that requires us to be adult and have conversations. I can't right now.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Shout out to Barbara, who is watching today. Hello to you.
Hello.
And Wayne is back. So glad that you're
Hey,
here.
Wayne.
Anytime you're ever in Facebook jail, you can always watch us on YouTube as well. We're on the Main Street channel on YouTube. So just so you know,
That's
we keep
right.
up. Glad to have you back, Wayne. I was wondering where Wayne's been. Elizabeth,
right.
good morning. Good morning. And always the cheerleader. She's part of what we do here. Amends, mending fences, things like that. Here's my my thing is, I always think it's really kind of funny is that I would love for people to mend a fence with me, but I want to tell them how to do it because it's my fence. My
Right.
fence. My fence. I will tell you how to mend my fence.
Right. Now we can share with people what our needs are. We can advocate for ourselves in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I work with people that, depending on the language that we use,
Mm-hmm.
language can be very activating or very triggering for people. So the minute that, and this is hypothetical, but the minute that you would say, I'm going to need to tell this person how to mend this fence, I know they're trying to make amends, but I'm going to tell them how they need to do that. Even that energy with that is going to be triggering for that person. We get in this really sticky situation where we both have to be like, okay, what are your needs? First, why is the person making amends? And listen, hear them out. Non-reactive, hear them out. And then you have an opportunity at that point to say, well, this is what I need from you.
The sticky wicket for me too is how many times do you take the amends? Everyone has had that person in your life, and sometimes it's a parent, sometimes it's a child. I'm sorry, but I'm sorry. I'm really sorry this time.
That's not amends. That's a statement.
See, y'all, this is why Teri is. I go, Teri, what would you say? No. It's like not wavering. And I'm going, well, okay. Okay. That's why the raging codependent here is going,
Yeah. There's a big difference. There's a huge difference in making amends, asking for forgiveness. There's even a difference in the way that we apologize to people. Like if I offended you, I could easily, pick up the phone or reach out to you or shoot you a text and say, hey, Devon, I am really sorry about that. I didn't mean to do that. Anyway, blah, 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 blah. How's Stevie doing? And just completely change the subject. That's not even an apology. That's a statement. An apology is, Devon, I hope that you can forgive me. It was not my intention, XYZ, but I recognize that in my actions, I hurt you.
mm,
And I hope that you can forgive me.
well,
That takes
let's,
that takes the power from the
mhm,
person who has created the conflict and puts it in the power, or empower is a really sticky word, but it puts the empowerment in the hand of the person who is, um, seeking the forgiveness or has been,
mhm,
hurt. And sometimes the person who hurts doesn't want to give the power over to that person because what if they say no?
yeah.
They say no, they say no.
Suzanne has joined us. Hi, Suzanne.
Hey,
Elizabeth.
Suzanne.
Oh, Lordy, amends can be so hard. We have to be ready no matter which side we're on. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
hard. It's hard to move into those waters. Del Nora, hi Del Nora. Y'all stepping on all the toes today. We love it.
Delnora, we're
Oh,
not just stepping, we are clogging today.
we're clogging on all the toes. If someone wrongs me, Barbara says, once I momentarily get over the grr part, I forgive them in my heart, and I found it always sets me free to move on. I'm not hanging around for them to make it right. Some people never do, I found. That's brilliant. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Absolutely.
Karen Tubb, interesting topic with a frowny face and a smiley face. Yeah, that's the way mending fences is. Asking forgiveness does put a burden on the person who's been wronged to make a step toward you. Let's talk a little bit. Let's open the little thing. If you're the one trying to mend the fence, you've been wrong. When you're wrong, promptly admit it. Uh, let's talk about what that entails and examine our motives when we want forgiveness.
Absolutely. And when we reach out to someone to ask for forgiveness, if they're not ready, don't push them. Don't bully them. Don't think that your need to be forgiven is more important than their need to process in that moment. Doesn't mean they won't, you know. Also, there are going to be some people that you may want to ask forgiveness from that just are not in a healthy place. And that's going to require you doing your own self-discovery to reconcile that within yourself, so that, because the truth be told, there's some people that, in relationships, whether they're family dynamics or
Mm-hmm.
work or whatever, there's going to be some people that are going to be, they're waiting for you to come to make amends because they are going to pounce. That is not a healthy situation for a person to go into, right? Because just because you've hurt someone, it doesn't mean that now someone has the right to hurt you back.
Right.
That negates the whole thing.
You know, making those steps sometimes brings us, when you talk about words like forgiveness, and I know I come from a churchy world, and nothing wrong with that. I love that. I love that I came from that. But I really hate when people use that religiosity to beat you overhead with a time limit on, well, you better forgive or the Lord won't forgive you. No, that's not how this works. You don't get to be judge and jury of anybody else and say what Jesus would do if you don't forgive somebody, and all that. Let's stop that right now, because I will blow the whistle on the big religious spirit, because people have been driven away from a grace place just because someone in standing at the doorway said, oh, you're not welcome here. And you don't ever get to say what God would do. You don't get to say that.
Right.
Okay, here's the deal, is asking for forgiveness or needing forgiveness brings us both to the place where we both have issues that we need to lay on that table. And ain't nobody that doesn't need grace, and ain't nobody deserve it. It's unmerited favor. It's something that just happens, and we lay it out there. And like you said, we don't have some time limit. It may take a while, because I'm going to tell you, I have been at altar calls where people have let me know things that have been done to them by a parent that I don't know how you get over, ever. If you're that parent, I don't know how you approach that subject. So let's talk about time limits and how long it takes for this forgiveness and things.
Well, time limits are really they're irrelevant. They really
Mm-hmm.
are. I mean, because again, um, how each individual processes their own need to forgive or need to be forgiven,
Mm-hmm.
um, that's such an individual thing. Now, hiding out and not addressing something is what most people do.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, that happened, but we're just not going to talk about it. And then I'll hear people go, but I've forgiven him, you know, and then they're still self harming, you know,
Yeah.
they're self harming in one of the many hundreds of ways, whether it's zoning out, numbing out, addictions of all sorts. So I hear people say a lot, oh, I've forgiven them. Or my favorite, I might forgiven them, but I ain't ever going to forget.
I might
Of
have said
course,
that. I
of
might have
course we're
said that.
not going to forget. There's nowhere in the rule book does it say forgiveness equals forgetting or
Uh,
forgiveness equals omitting. It doesn't say that, you know. So it's we have to really be clear with what our definition of forgiveness is.
James says it's almost like saying bless your heart.
Right. You
A
know.
little bit, little bit, little bit.
Yeah.
Barbara says Jesus didn't get it wrong. Churchy people do. That's why many people are leaving. You're exactly right. Exactly right, Barbara. And Elizabeth shares, let me see, find this here. Where'd it go? Oh, I must always accept the consequences of my actions and behavior, whether I like it or not. Some hurts can't be healed. I can't expect forgiveness, and I try to give grace. Okay, Teri, open that one up.
Well, now see, Elizabeth comes from a place where she says, I can't expect forgiveness. But there are people who can, and expect, that's the key word right there, right?
Mm-hmm.
I expect somebody to forgive me. However, there's a difference in I, being able to be safe enough in a situation where when we have wronged someone,
Mm-hmm.
ourselves being able to be safe enough in a situation to be vulnerable with them, and knowing that that vulnerability, despite the fact that we have hurt them, will not be held in a punitive way, because that person, whether they're churchy or not, might be wanting to throat punch you at any given moment because of something you've done to them. um, I fall in a belief system, and people, I'll even say this when I'm talking with people. I'm like, I can feel the eye roll before I even say it. I don't subscribe, me personally, I don't subscribe to things happen to me. I subscribe to they happen for me. Now, in the moment, these things are going to be hurtful, right? If someone wrongs me, oh, why'd they do that to me? Well, when I have a little clear vision and can step back from the situation, sometimes it's happened because it's shown me something that I needed to see that maybe didn't have clarity to see myself. Maybe they're never going to make amends. Maybe they want to make amends immediately. But it gives us an insight on not only another person, but
Mm-hmm.
things that we have opportunities to grow on, and things that we
Ooh.
have opportunities to self discover about ourselves. And if we sit around for years and years and years going, "Ooh, I can't wait till they come back and apologize to me," well, there's bigger issues to look at there
Yeah.
within ourselves than that person coming back to apologize.
You know, infidelity is a big one in this particular arena. Mending that fence, because I've talked to a lot of wives who had a no good, low down, scum sucking dog of a husband that cheated on them. That was not my words. That was Johnny Cash's, actually. But but that's the reference. And I watched them. Well, he came back, but I've also watched that relationship where, well, he's going to have to do some things before I'm going to just take him all the way back. He's going to have to do this. It's in constant punishment.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a divided house. If you can take someone back, and it can take your time, and there's going to be some trust issues, but forgiveness is, it lightens the load. It says, okay, we're going to either shake this etch a sketch and do a do-over,
Mm-hmm.
or we're not.
And it also implies that we are no longer going to hold that person in that punitive arena, that we are truly giving an offer of forgiveness to them. And when we do
Yeah.
that, we have to know that in the heat of the moment, when you're really mad about something, no longer can you open up that crusty Pandora's box and go, well, remember that time, and throw it back out there again. Because if you truly have forgiven it, then it's not that you're going to forget that pain, but you can't weaponize it and use
Mhm.
it against, not only in a relationship, we're not just using it against the other person, we're using it against ourselves. when i
Right.
when I work with people and they say, well, he cheated on me or she cheated on me, and I correct them immediately and say, no, they cheated on you, us. Like, it's an us, it's a couple that is cheated
Hmm.
on, not just one individual.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's good. That's
you
good.
know
Del Nora says, don't y'all think forgiveness is so much like grief, insofar as there's no time limit on processing it or getting over it? Good
I,
question.
absolutely, and I think that it can be very similar. um, what we have to look at is what we're anchored into, whether it's grief or whether it is forgiveness. What are we anchored into? Is it a feeling of we're in, this forgiveness, for instance? Are we in control? Are we maintaining control? Are we keeping ourselves safe because we're keeping that person at a distance from us?
Mm,
Therefore, I don't have to forgive them because I'm safe now without, with that. Sometimes when we hear people out, we recognize that they truly did not mean to do whatever it was they did. They were being reactive for whatever reason. Now, some
hmm.
people are just butts and they do shitty things because they're just shitty. But
Yeah.
but most people that harm us, emotionally, mentally, um, it's a little sketchy for me to say physically because that goes into a different arena. But people that harm us don't intentionally do that with malice. There are some people, though, the aside to that is there are some people who are careless with other people's hearts and their time and their energy, and they really are um, not aware of the damage that they do, the collateral damage that they do.
Forgiveness, Elizabeth says, also doesn't mean saying what someone did or what we did is okay.
Right.
Very good point. Very, very good point. Melissa, the Bible is very clear on what forgiveness is, which is not necessarily the same thing as restoration. Restoration, which is what we're talking about today, mending the fence. Restoration involves repentance and both parties investing in the relationship. Otherwise, the wrong carries the load forever by doing the work of two. Ooh, Melissa, that's good. That's heavy.
Yeah. And here's the thing. If you've wronged someone and you go to ask for forgiveness and they are in a punitive mindset where they're going to weaponize that and they're going to make you pay, right? You're not going to be able to get over it. Then at that point, you have a decision. If you want to continue investing time and energy. And I'm not saying that it's well, fine, I'm not going to be your friend anymore. But you have to really look at the ability that they are presenting. Are you going to be able to move past that together? Friendship, relationship, whatever it is, or has that particular chapter closed?
That's the thing, and it's important to remember sometimes people are brought into our lives for a season to make us grow. And sometimes it's the pressure that makes the diamond that we become. There are times when there's a phrase that we've talked about together. I bless you and I release you. Go and live your life. And without malice, and for me, because my some of my biggest forgivenesses have dealt with physical pain to me or physical assaults to me, and I found forgiveness. Literally, I would pray every day, God, put forgiveness in my heart because I can't do this. I cannot do this. And even when that person came to me, I could not do it. I could not do it. But when I started kind of letting that go and not being responsible for doing all the work, all of a sudden I didn't wish ill. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want payback. I didn't want anything. I just wanted freedom. Freedom from the carrying the load that I was carrying. Freedom for them, just free. And I think sometimes we have to let the fence look different, like a new fence.
Well, just like with grief, life is never going to be the same. When you've walked with grief, it changes you. It will never, you will not be that person that you were before because you have energetically changed. Doesn't mean that you're not as good as or whatever. It just means you're different in a way, and you get to then evolve differently. And forgiveness is the same. Forgiveness is a loss. It is a grief, or we can grieve it. When a loss has happened, a loss is the experience. The grief is what we feel. So when sometimes people will hang on to, refuse a forgiveness because they're terrified. It's not that they're angry. It's that they're terrified that if they are vulnerable and love again or like again or trust again, that they will be used again. And believe it or not, that's not about the person that made the error in the beginning. That's about the person that's having the issue forgiving.
Let's talk about the person that has moved on. And I want to get into the text that you sent me about the thing. Do you feel guilt after forgiveness? I mean, some people, they move on more quickly, but they feel bad about it. How long do we stay in that pity pot, in that place? And, you sent me the text and we were discussing, um, we resist feeling better. Okay, let's just open that.
Yes. Yeah. The text, and just total transparency, so everybody's on the same wavelength with us. I had sent a text that said that I was having a conversation with someone about, um, healing being punitive. And
Hmm.
sometimes we resist feeling better, we
Hmm.
resist looking better, whatever, putting your makeup on, doing your hair, brushing your teeth, whatever. We resist those things when we're, and this is kind of shifting lanes a little bit, when we're grieving, because the minute that we step back out into the world and you put your makeup on, or you look presentable, whatever that means, um, people assume that you're better, and that life just picks up from that moment and then they move forward. So a lot of times people will unconsciously even stay in that space because they don't feel better.
Hmm.
Maybe they've been wronged. Maybe they've had a loss of a loved one. Maybe something has happened. The folks that live in Waverly, I doubt very seriously. I'm sure that not every day is horrible, but I'm sure that there are some of those folks that are trying to make the best of it. Right. And just because they're making the best of it and they're trying to smile, or they're trying to talk to people and be upbeat, it doesn't
Yeah.
mean their heart's not broken because of what has happened to the community.
Hmm.
So if we blindly just go, oh, well, look, Sally Joe, she's got her makeup on today. And I saw her, she was singing in the car on the way to work today. So she's good. Let's just forget any of that stuff ever happened. She's still in pain. So, so if we're conscious and mindful, then we keep that awareness about people and check in on them, because just
Right.
because people look like they're $1 million doesn't mean that they're not worn and wrinkled and just exhausted. So being kind to our fellow humans.
Yeah, and the same goes for if you've been carrying around a heavy load of resentment and angst and stuff. Don't keep yourself in that punitive to yourself just so you want to punish the person that you're holding accountable for the who did it to you.
Well, ask
You
yourself this:
know. Hmm.
what are you getting out of it? Have we heard that before? What are you getting out of it? Why?
Yes,
Why?
I.
What are you getting out of, what are we, I'll say we, because I use myself in just about all analogies. What are we getting out of holding on to something that just pisses us off? What positive are we getting out of that?
Yeah.
It's not teaching us to be loving, it's not teaching us to be kind, it's not even teaching us to be kind to ourselves. Because the minute that we hang on to that for so long, and then we start to go, well, you know what, maybe maybe I will forgive that. Well, we've already created an alter ego in our head that tells us that we're just crazy if we
Right.
forgive that, because you can't do that. And then we have to be careful about everybody that we talk to. How many times have you
Hmm.
known couples that when there's a problem in the relationship, they'll go to their respective corners or their friends and they just dump all over the family, and they dump all of the ugliness, but they never dump any of the goodness. So then when they do get back together, their people, their tribe has only heard all the ugliness, and that's really challenging for people to work, friendships or anything, for people to
It
work
is.
through that.
It truly is. Delnora says, "Yes, I was waiting for it. What are you getting out of it?" Yeah, yeah. That's
Hmm.
coming. We always know that's coming. Tim offers, I forgive and release it because once I can forgive and release for me personally, helps me to move forward and take things that are more important and take more priority in my own personal life. Very, very important.
Absolutely. And the other part about that, Tim brings up an excellent point there, is that sometimes it is not, um, I do an exercise with clients, and it revolves around forgiveness, and I will see bristles go up immediately. I'm not forgiving them for that. I'm not. And I'm like, how do you even know it has anything to do with them? Because surprise, it doesn't. You know, we we punish ourselves in ways that we don't even know or we don't even recognize sometimes. We hold joy, we hold joy away from ourselves because of a need to be angry sometimes, or to be non-forgiving. We owe ourselves a forgiveness. We owe ourselves an apology in many situations and circumstances, especially when we're holding on to something where, say, a relationship ends, or there's been some sort of, abuse as a child or something, and we
Mm-hmm.
spend our lives treating ourselves in painful ways. We owe ourselves that apology. We owe ourselves that olive branch. And when we can take that in and process it, and feel as whole as we can, whatever whole is for each person, then we are in a position that we can move forward and pay that same respect forward.
Mm, that is so good. The name of this episode is Mending Fences, and mending fences ain't always pretty. And if you've ever been in a fence situation, and like me, and you've got baling twine trying to hold a blind bull in, that's sometimes what it looks like. And it's okay. It's okay if it looks like that. It's okay if if it's not perfectly right, or there is no right or wrong,
I
really.
started to say there is no right or
Mhm.
wrong. The only reason that we have these ideals around the right and the wrong, and it being perfect or it being this or that, is because society has created structures around it that this is how we do it.
Yeah,
And
or that,
it's not applicable for everybody.
right, or that somehow it's supposed to look like a TV show at the end, and
Hmm.
wrapped in 20 minutes or less with a bow on the end, and you go, "Oh, it goes back to the way it was before we were hurt." No,
Right. And
it's not.
the hurt goes from, we can feel betrayed on a number of levels, from intimate relationship betrayals to somebody standing you up for lunch.
Mhm.
I mean, really, and there's a huge spectrum of that. So, and not all forgiveness is applicable at the same rate, but it's really about us looking at, do I want to pick up that backpack and carry that with all that anger and all that sadness and all that I'll show them? Do I want to carry that? Because
Mhm.
eventually you get tired of carrying it. And we convince ourselves that, well, either, well, they didn't mean to do that, so they don't have to apologize to me. Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, will they? I don't know. But we have to put ourselves in a position where, recognizing, yes, I do deserve an apology for that. May not get it from that person, but you can work it in yourself.
Last question, because we're going a little over time, but Karen says, "How do you forgive when the person is no longer here on earth?"
Lots of different ways to do that. Um, some are very unconventional. We talked about this a little bit last week, about like a burning bowl ceremony, getting right in our own heart space about um, forgiving them for whatever they did. You know, we can choose to forgive someone without them actually saying, "I need you to forgive me," because we can choose to look at their highest self. We can choose to look at their God self. We can
Mhm.
choose to look at that part of them and know that perhaps they did things that um, weren't idyllic here while they were here on earth. I have a perfect example of this, and I've shared this with you. My father was a very textured man. He never asked for forgiveness, and he never apologized, and he never forgave. He was a unique and textured individual. I had to get to a point in my life where I didn't listen to other people tell me how I should feel. I had to sit with that and go, you know what? I know enough about him as a human,
Mm.
and I know enough about him and his childhood that I can look at his higher self.
Mm-hmm.
And he showed up the way he showed up because he was fear based. You would have never known it because everybody feared him, but he was insecure. And so I chose to forgive him and release him from that stuff. And I'm telling you, when we do that, sometimes people think, well, if I forgive them and let them go, then, it's just kind of poof, it's anticlimactic, it's all gone. It's not. You get to take your own voice and freedom and liberties back. And you get to navigate your life without that, well, now what do I do?
Mm.
So if you guys want to know ways to release and forgive people who are no longer physically here on earth, leave messages below, shoot me a text, whatever. We can definitely unpack that because there's lots of ways to do that. And you can also do that with someone that's here still on this earth that you just don't particularly want to hang out with or you've lost touch with. You can still find ways to do that as well, so that you are not, you know, shackled in that invisible emotional stuff anymore.
Symbols and ritual are some ways that we get to do that. Suzanne said, it's easy to say release, but do you let go? Do a session on how to release and let go. That's going in our pot. We're going to definitely do that. Tim, oh my God, I just love you, Teri Pugh. Yes, they do. I love it. And I've done the intentions burning. It's so healing. Yes, absolutely. Well, we're going to close things by telling if you need to reach out to us, you can leave a message here on our YouTube channel. You can send an email, devonoday@gmail, or Teri, they can reach out to you directly for a private session.
Yep. They can find me at teripugh.com, teripugh.com. Or they can find me on Instagram. So I'm there. And you can also send a carrier pigeon if you want to. I mean, I'm not opposed to that either. So
apparently people are just sending me messages by cats. They're anybody need a kitten?
There you go. There you go.
I got you covered. All right. God bless you, everybody. Remember, as Teri always closes our show.
Yes, we appreciate you so much. Go throughout your day and